Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Gisanti from the Market Down podcast. Normally, when we're here live with you here on social media, it's to report about fun stuff, about happy stuff, about what's going on in the wrestling world in a great way. But unfortunately, today, that is not the case. I have the horrible duty to report that Windham Rotunda, better known as Bray Wyatt, has unfortunately passed away at the age of 36 years old. Wyndham has been in the WWE and has been wrestling for over a decade at this point. He has entertained millions around the globe with his creativity, his passion, and his love for the sport. This comes as a huge shock to all of us here. Every wrestling fan in the WWE universe, every wrestling fan, period. This wasn't something we were expecting. This isn't something that we were ever hoping we would have to talk about. But unfortunately, that is the reality. And I don't know how much there is to say. There is a lot of unknowns at this point. We unfortunately know that Bray was dealing with a life-threatening illness for several months, essentially since the last time we saw him live on TV. And we don't know much past that. We don't know what it is. I'm sure more news will come in the coming days. I'm sure we'll learn more as time passes, but that unfortunately, that to me isn't what's important right now. Instead, I feel it's our duty as his fans to appreciate the man that he was and the performer that he was and the mark that he left on all of us. I've been following Wyndham since he was Husky Harris in the second season of NXT. And even then, he had a very different vibe about him. He had a very different glow and a different aura to him. And then when he debuted his Bray Wyatt character, it was a game changer, and it was one of the most entertaining and most mysterious and exciting characters we've seen in a long, long time. And then he tweaked it even further with the creation of his Fiend gimmick and the Firefly Funhouse. And we unfortunately didn't get to experience much more with I'm sorry guys, it's a little bit tough to report on this stuff. It's hard, but we unfortunately didn't get to experience too much of Uncle Howdy and what that was going to be and what Bray had in store for us upon his return to the WWE. But no matter what you thought of any gimmick or character or concept, nobody can deny that Bray's talent shined through with every performance, every promo, every match. We here at the Market Down podcast have said that maybe he's bigger than wrestling at this point. Maybe his mind, his creativity goes so much past just the wrestling ring and the wrestling world. And we were all very excited to see what he could have brought with his own brand of entertainment. I'm at a loss on how to speak about this. It's when we, as fans, we have a very interesting relationship with the WWE superstars or every wrestler that appears on our television screen every week. You know, we're fans, and we obviously we don't know them. We don't get to have a very personal relationship with these people, but it is still a very powerful and intimate relationship. They're in our homes every week. They're showing us who they are on a weekly basis, and Bray Windham was very open and honest about his struggles with mental health, with his. Oh, I'm about to be joined in a moment, I believe. But Wyndham was very open about his life and his struggles and his ordeals, and it made it feel like we got to know him even a little bit more. So this hurts on a very personal level. I'm going to take a moment to allow my partner to join in. Hello, Danny.
Hey, what's up?
Unfortunately, you know, we're all dealing with a very tragic and unexpected loss with Bray Wyatt, and I'm very glad to have you here with me because this job sucks today. But
yeah, we're not even getting paid extra for this. This is not fair. Let me just say, I am fucking devastated. You might not hear it in my voice right now, but that's because I just pulled myself together to put on the very easy facade to, you know, not overreact to this. No offense, because I get it. It's, you know, you don't want to come off as like sounding like you don't care. So, you know, but I'm trying to keep the somber tone out of my voice just for now. It's gonna it's gonna seep in. I can't help it. Like, this is a fucking tragedy. Like, you know, people die all the time, and it's sad, but you have degrees of separation. And a celebrity dies, and it's like you try not to be one of those people that gets all upset about a celebrity death, and you kind of just try to treat it like every other one. But when it's for something you love, when it's for like a fandom that you're so invested in, you're so passionate about, it's hard not to embrace one of the most beloved people in the fandom. Like, you know, everyone feels something about Bray Wyatt. You know, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna use the character name most of the time because I just don't want to. It's just easier to say that way. I don't want to slip up any other way. But this is just absolutely devastating news, and it's just there's no word. We don't have the words to do it justice. We're not those people, and we're poetic in our own right, and we have our own way of expressing ourselves. But I don't think we're ever gonna do it justice. I miss Bray. I already miss Bray. I missed him before he passed. I missed him in a different way, obviously. But you know, now that he's gone, it's so unexpected, and we don't have all the information yet, and we're not gonna yet. I'm sure when his family is comfortable, we'll get the information. But this is so eerily similar to the Brody Lee situation. And it's just like I don't know. Like, do we? I don't even want to speculate on what it could be. But
no,
you know,
it's the only thing we can confirm with certainty is that Bray has been dealing with this illness for some time, and the severity of it, I don't think, was fully understood for a very long time. And we're gonna find out more, like you just said, Danny. We're gonna find out more as time passes, as his family is more comfortable. And I do think I would like to take a moment to send our condolences to Wyndham's father, IRS, his brother Bo, his wife JoJo, and his 4 children that he's leaving.
4 children? Oh my god!
Yeah. 2 from a previous marriage and 2 with JoJo. And they were all they're all very young.
Well, so, yeah, he's like 4 years, he's 5 years older than us. Like, you know, they can only be so old. This is, oh God, that is so sad. I mean, see, I'm so fucking dark and cynical that I want to make a joke to lighten the mood, but I don't even, it's at, like,
we probably give it a day. We probably give it a day before. But
yeah, but it's just for the kids. For the kids, I'm sorry. Like, that is tragic.
It's a very surreal moment right now. we weren't expecting this. It's like you said, he's only 4 years younger, 4 years old, no, 5 years older than us. It doesn't feel like this should be something that happens. This shouldn't be something that should even be in our realm of possibility, but unfortunately it is. And there's no right way to process this. And right now my heart goes out to all of his passionate fans and his friends and his family, his loved ones. I know a lot of people in our community loved him dearly. Dragoon being one of them. So many of us cared about him. It's hard not to think, and I don't want to minimize the fact that this is a real human being that we have unfortunately lost, but his journey in the WWE, his journey as a professional wrestler is something that we've all been following for some time now. And it was hard not to be rooting for this guy. He was so energetic and he was so magnetic when he finally won his first championship, his first WWE championship. We all, like, I exploded when that happened. I couldn't, I was freaking out, and I have the privilege of saying I've gotten to see Bray wrestle live multiple times. And there was just this, I used this word earlier, but there was just this aura about the man that when you were in his presence, you felt it. You felt his energy. And it's heartbreaking to think that so many of us we're never going to be able to experience that again.
Yeah, it really is. And again, I just, we'll draw a line under it in a way, but to the person, Windham Rotunda, rest in peace. Our deepest condolences to your family. But, which I think is one of the most traditional ways to deal with a death and passing. And, from personal experience, I've done this at funerals too. It's just talk about all the good, talk about all the great stuff. And you've kind of already pivoted into that. And I just want to almost put like a hard pivot into that. And let's, there's only so much we can say about what happened, especially because we don't know what has happened truly. We just know it was probably the same illness that has kept him out. Yeah. And, I think that puts that's a sad exclamation point on the end of a roller coaster of a career that had a lot of ups and downs, and none of the downs were really the guy's fault. All the downs were out of his control, or Goldberg's fault. But
don't let Bret Hart hear you, man. Come on.
But
see, levity.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll move to just the ups, because I think there's a great, and I'm sorry, this is a little morbid, but there's a great story to be told of the Bray Wyatt, of Bray Wyatt's career and all the ups and downs and everything that caused those downs and everything that went wrong or went right. And that would be an amazing, I'm sorry again, this is a little morbid, but that'd be an amazing Dark Side of the Ring, or WWE truly pulled back the curtain and made a documentary of themselves. I think it'd be one of the most fascinating ones they've ever made. But to pivot, I want to let's just start throwing out some of the best moments. For me, what immediately came to mind was 2014, the Shield versus the Wyatts, Elimination Chamber 2014, the greatest Elimination Chamber pay-per-view of all time. But no way outs included. But that match that was so special. It was such a moment, and in the short time since we found out, I've watched 2 clips because I was trying to find them to get them to maybe post them on our socials or something. But the first one, this is awesome before the match even started. Just that it was just such a beautiful moment. And then the Raw after Mania in 2014, even though one of the first major hurdles was John Cena of it all, that Raw after Mania was so special. The crowd singing, He's got the whole world in his hands, and just how energetic it was. And it's man, those crowds were so loud. It makes me think of like the post-pandemic crowds and how less loud they are, but that's not the point of any of this. But I was just one of those things. I'm like, man, they were so over it at that point, and just like immediately, those are like the first two of those like magical moments that jumps in mind. You already mentioned him winning the WWE title, which was funny enough was another Elimination Chamber match, but you know, just the SmackDown after he won it, him getting the "You Deserve It" chance and then breaking character a little bit to acknowledge that and to be grateful for that, you know, like that. These are all really special moments, and I don't know. I don't know if you want to touch on these moments or keep throwing in some more because I feel there's so many we will talk about.
There are so many iconic moments where Bray, you can make an entire highlight reel just of Bray's career, and it's Hall of Fame worthy. Whether it's his interactions with Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, that cage match that they had. Everyone focuses on Bryan, but you couldn't have had that epic, amazing moment without Bray. The Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena. The creativity that Bray brought to that match.
That honestly might be my favorite match ever, if it even qualifies. This one is so good. It was the coolest thing. Like it made, like it's why I look back at the pandemic era fondly. It's because of that. Like specifically, it was such a beautiful, very meta and tongue in cheek. But like if you're into that sort of thing, which I kind of am. I think a lot of wrestling fans are because we're marks, and you know we have a wrestling channel. We watch wrestling YouTube channels, and we like peeking behind the curtain. So like that was right up our alleys. Super meta, just unbelievable stuff, and you know, good on Cena for going along with that because I feel like Cena of 2014 wouldn't have done that. Yeah, Hulk Hogan of any year wouldn't have done that. But it was beautiful, and the first 6 months of the Fiend, which is funny because it's like the Fiend was butchered so many times along the way,
but it was still such a good gimmick that people gravitated towards it.
To the point people wanted it back when he returned. You know, like, is he going to bring the Fiend back? It was #1 selling merchandise for a long time, and it's just it's great how many iterations of him we got. You know, like how I know people didn't love it, but I liked his first match with Kane, the Ring of Fire match. It was stupid, but I liked it. Like
I could say with the utmost certainty, I think my favorite trios match of all time is the Shield versus the Wyatt family.
It just you can't compare anything to it. It's so unique. I don't want to use the word undeniable because that has a specific connotation in wrestling because of Cody, but like it was this undeniable like moment of this is just for us. This is for everyone. Like this is for us, but yet for everyone. This beautiful moment. There's nothing on the line. It's just about supremacy, and it's just a cool match for the sake of having a cool match. But then it became so much more. And you had the turmoil within the Shield in that match, which was great and a good part of it. But like, I've watched that match so many times since it's originally happened. You know, like it was so cool. Like I look back, I said it earlier, but
I go back to it a lot. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time is Elimination Chamber 2014. It's fucking beautiful. And that match is a big reason why it's that and the main event are the main two things, but like, everything else on the show is decent to good too. Like it was a special, beautiful moments where everyone just knew how cool this was. Like nobody, like you can't find a person that didn't like that match. I'm sorry, you're lying. Yeah. Like you are absolutely disregarding reality if you say you didn't like that match.
You knew every man in that match was a future star. And I know Eric Rowan was in that match, but he was The Rock's last opponent. So that's, that's big. But you knew we were watching the Battle of the Titans.
Yeah.
We were watching some of the best talent WWE had to offer at that point, and you saw these future stars. You knew the Shield guys were going to be stars. You knew Bray Wyatt was going to be a star. Harper had become more and more popular at that time. And Eric Rowan was cool. And I'm trying not to be rude about it. But
it's just the timing of it was so great. Like, well, this wasn't a plan. Things just worked out perfectly in that scenario that we have these two
storm.
Mega factions getting over at the same time and dominating at the same time to culminate in one of my all-time favorite matches. Like, it is genuinely up there. I will never not think about that match. Now it's a lot harder to watch because of, Brody and now Bray, but like it's just like that might be my fondest memory. It's like that, the Firefly Funhouse. Like, there's always contenders. I'll always love, even though again there's another feud that did him no favors. I'll always love it's always been you, Roman, like promo.
Yeah.
It's great. Welcome, Rev. I don't know if you've heard, but like, how you doing?
Obviously things are sad. This is a terrible day for wrestling, and following off the heels of Terry Funk and Jay Briscoe earlier this year, as somebody in the chat said, this has been a rough year of losses for wrestling for all of us, and especially this is another person that we watched as we were growing up and getting more and more into wrestling, and it's difficult to see somebody you love to watch and admire so much pass away at such a young age. So it's rough, but Danny, you're pretty much hitting all the points I was going to hit with all of my favorite moments of his and his best matches, that triple threat. I think you mentioned, James, the match against Bryan in the steel cage, leading to the revival of the Yes movement. I just wanted to bring up when he ended up teaming with Roman at one point, and the tag team, I think it was a Raw, and he pointed out the spear.
Oh God, so cool!
One of just the coolest little clips ever in wrestling. I mean, he had so many big moments, and even though I felt like there were so many times WWE perhaps set him up to fail, that he was able to overcome that and still be one of the most enigmatic wrestlers I think we have ever seen.
Absolutely, beautifully said, Kamish. It's going to obviously take us a long time to process this. The wrestling landscape, and again, we're talking as fans of the product right now, and I'm separating Bray Wyatt from Windham Rotunda, but the potential that is lost now with this incredible talent at such a young age, where we've talked about it a little bit briefly here. He was saddled with so much baggage from the WWE, from a booking standpoint, and he still made chicken salad out of chicken shit on multiple occasions. And it genuinely felt like every time he came back or every time he brought something new, he was hitting a new stride. He was hitting a new peak. And it's just heartbreaking to think that there's so much more that we could have experienced that we'll never be able to now. And that's, again, I'm speaking, unfortunately, purely just as a wrestling fan. And I've said it a few times already tonight, but it's just a surreal feeling.
Yeah, and again, we obviously, we didn't know him personally. James knows a lot of wrestlers technically, but we don't know him personally, and as a person, we can't comment on how big of a deal this is and how much of a tragedy it is, and even a fraction of grief that his family might be going through. So all we can do in that regard is offer our condolences, and there's whatever his family needs to do to cope with it. But at least they know that they have a sea of love for this man, that they have a treasure trove of fondness and adoration that this man has acquired over the years and built up over the years. So it's not much, but it's something that they can go online and see all these beautiful things that everyone is saying about him right now. The outreach that he had, the reach that he had in the connections he's made with people, whether it's fans or whether it's coworkers or anyone he's come across. So, you know, like I said, it's not much, but
Yeah.
it is a little bit of a bright spot in this literally very dark and gloomy day.
Yeah.
You can go back and watch his promo when he returns the last time or the most recent time, and just see the emotion that he had, you know, speaking to those fans for the first time. And I think it was at least over a year, and the fans returning all of that love and emotion back to him. Like, people really cared about Bray. And for those of you who don't, this is my brother. Hi, Matt. He did dress up as Bray. It was his fantasy football championship, and he because he lost, he was
His
the
punishment.
punishment. Thank you. He was the Divas champion, as we give the loser the old plastic butterfly Divas belt, and he had to dress up as Bray, and he looked great as him. He had the tattoos and
He really did.
the old Hawaiian and the straw hat and everything, and yeah, I mean, you know, even just stuff like that, the cosplay of it all, like, you know, people really got into all iterations of his character.
I mean, there was always people dressed like him, like in the first few rows at shows. But like, I don't know if you guys saw, but I always saw one of those guys at Barclays. Like, there was always a Bray Wyatt guy at Barclays Center.
Yep. He was just so cool. Like, we keep saying it in so many different ways, but in its base, like, it's just the truth. He was so friggin' cool. He was cool when he spoke. He was cool when he walked. He was cool with how he looked. Everything about him was cool, you know? The moment he made his mark in the company, the moment he landed, it was just like there's a new element of cool in this company, something that we hadn't seen in a very long time. I know a lot of people compare the two, even though I think it's a disservice to him. We hadn't had that kind of experience or that persona since The Undertaker and Kane. And it was a beautiful moment to see Taker proverbially pass the torch to Bray with LA Knight a few months ago, or a year ago, I guess, at this point. But God, it was just so fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean, that level of charisma is what allowed him to be the cult leader initially. You know, like, nobody else could have pulled off being a cult leader the way he did, because he was so charismatic, because he was cool. You wanted to follow him, even though he was the bad guy. There's a reason everybody got behind the Wyatt family, even though they were the bad guys and jumping people and everything. So, you know, and you brought up The Undertaker, their match at WrestleMania, you know, even though if it was a little bit hampered by Bray's ankle, it was just surreal to watch, you know, seeing these two, you know, not just larger than life figures, but these mystical figures face off against each other, and Bray even breaking character for a brief second and giving him the nod at the start of the match. Like, everything he did was just so amazing. And, you know, as I said before, even though some of it wasn't, you know, the best because of the way they booked him, he was able to make all of it work. And I literally do not, outside of, I guess, that Hell in a Cell versus Seth, like, I don't have a bad memory of him wrestling.
And even then, it
was a good match.
Yeah, it wasn't him, you know. Yeah. It was poor booking, but
So Papa G in the chat.
Love you, Dad. Thank you for being here. We were talking about cool moments before. You brought up the point into the spear. I don't care how many times we saw it. I don't care. Bray doing his crab walk into Taker sitting up. Legendary.
No.
Legendary. Oh, man.
He, like, if there was ever a guy that was Teflon that could bounce back from just atrocious booking and still remain a top guy and have that aura about him, that, to be honest, a lot we don't have. It feels so weird to say we don't have anymore, because this 2014, 2015 feels like 2 months ago. You know, like, all these years time is fucking irrelevant, and all these years are a blur. But, like, you know, like, he was to he was to the PG era, but like guys like Edge and Orton, where it's like the ruthless aggression era of like those guys getting over like to top guy level, but it's not the same top guy level as like the generation prior, and he kind of transcended that. There was just something about him that was like, oh, this is a big deal no matter what. And if I can make a joke, because I've barely made any of those, it's just a shame we never got that Sister Abigail versus the Pumpkin Demon King match. And we had to get AJ Styles versus Finn Balor instead. Tragedy.
That's still one of the weirdest and best pay-per-views I've ever watched. I think was it Kurt was in the Shield?
Yeah, Kurt Angle was in the Shield.
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest what-ifs in wrestling history, or recent wrestling history, at least.
Oh, man. I mean, Triple H was in the Shield, too, so there could have been a world where the Shield was just Kurt Angle, Triple H, and Roman Reigns,
oh, what a world.
I mean, there's almost a world where it was Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Chris Hero, so...
Yeah, it would have been really cool and then broken up 6 months later, and that would have been the end of it.
Absolutely.
But one of the moments, because I've been scrolling through Twitter just to see what some people have said, and this is a serious moment, so we're still gonna call it Twitter, but which I know is bad because otherwise I don't use Twitter. I don't even have a Twitter. I just have to mark it down Twitter.
I get that. It's for wrestling use only at this point, Twitter, yeah. And
I just saw like Matt Hardy like post something about it. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a nice little run. That was like making the most of like two characters that were just ruined so badly. Like, let's put them together and see if we can rekindle some of their magic. And it worked. Yeah,
it really did.
There was something about it that just worked. It's weird. You see, like I saw Big E put something. It's like all those guys that came up together in that like 2012 through 15 like NXT era.
Yeah, late FCW, early NXT.
Yeah, there's so many people that just have these bonds with them. It's like it's weirdly reminiscent of the Brody Lee situation, but not just because they were in a faction together, but because you have people like Seth, Big E, Becky Lynch, and all these people who are like, you don't think of them interacting with a guy like Luke Harper, Bray Wyatt, like these big country bumpkin looking dudes with their massive beards, and then like someone more clean cut like Big E, or someone like interact with them. It's like oddball sorts of things. But then you see them talking about each other, and it's just these beautiful sentiments and these nice, really nice things. And yeah, I don't know, like, and this is like borderline doom scrolling to me to be like, oh, I want to see what all these other people are saying about him so I can get more sad, I guess. Like, I don't, I guess that's the point of it, but
it's the appropriate feeling. I get wanting to put yourself in that mindset. And I don't think it can be overstated right now or understood. It can't be stated enough right now how many people you've talked about it, the outpouring of love, but from his coworkers right now. I cannot scroll through Instagram, and that's what I'm doing right now. I cannot scroll through Instagram or Twitter or anywhere where you're not seeing pictures of Bray with his friends right now. All these people who loved him and adored him and cared about him. And we've talked a lot about his legacy as a wrestler, but very clearly the legacy he's going to leave behind as a man and as a friend, and it will not be soon forgotten.
Yeah, I remember that picture when Brody died I know Bray was in it and a bunch of other guys was circling around. I wouldn't be surprised if that picture was circling as well. I haven't really had an opportunity to go on any social media stuff. I literally got home and jumped right on here because I wanted to talk about this, but yeah, I mean, you could just Danny, going and seeing all these people talk about him, like, it's also a little comforting, seeing how much people loved him. And yeah, it's sad, but you can kind of find a bit of camaraderie and comfort with other people, knowing that they're feeling the same way you are.
He really, I'm not trying to make light of this, but he really does right now have the whole world in his hands. And it speaks to who this person was and the impact that he had on all of us.
Yeah, I don't want to like exaggerate and have it sound like recency bias or postmortem like sort of thing, but like he's in the conversation for the best of this generation.
Oh, absolutely.
Of this span of, I mean, I genuinely think you can only put like a small handful of names, from like, I don't know how to bracket this, but I guess from like 2012 to 2022.
Let's say that NXT class, like that first NXT class.
But it's like him, Brian, and Roman, and I kind of want to disqualify Roman because he wasn't good until pandemic. But like that's not what this is about. Like, I don't want to start a whole trash Roman thing.
But you do bring up a good point when it comes to that. How you mentioned both of those guys, Brian, Roman. Bray played a huge part in both of their journeys. I wholeheartedly believe the Roman Reigns we have of today would not exist without Bray Wyatt. And Bryan Danielson's journey, that epic Yesamania journey, like it was made so much better by the Wyatt family involvement and Bray's involvement. And their match at the Royal Rumble is amazing. It's incredible work.
One of the best non-Rumble matches in Rumble history for sure. And like you said it already, but that moment in the cage, like that's another one I watch ad nauseum because it was just so magical. And you're right, he did play such a pivotal role in both of their journeys. That's the guy he was. He was either playing this pivotal role in the wrestlers of the time or fighting the legends of the time before. I did, and like hindsight's what it is, but I believe I've always felt this. But this is I'm more upset now that we never got like the Fiend versus the Tribal Chief version of Roman, which was hinted at so heavily when Roman first turned. And I know everything went off the boil with the Fiend multiple times, but like, I remember when the Alexa Bliss stuff was first starting, and it was very compelling and interesting because it's easy to make fun of it now because of all the goofy stuff with like Orton. But like when it first was happening, it was interesting, it was compelling, and like I'll never forget the stare down of Roman making his entrance while Alexa was leaving, and her just staring at the title like as a vessel for Roman or for Bray, like she was staring at it for him. And I was like, oh, we never got that, and that is a shame. Like I understand why Roman took his character too very seriously at this point, didn't want to, interact with the supernatural aspects of the Fiend and Bray Wyatt, and I get that, but like, it's a bummer we never got that. Yeah,
and let's not discount the Randy stuff either. Like I understand the WrestleMania match ended up being,
which one? Sorry, you got to specify. Yeah,
that's yes. But I mean, I thought like the storylines themselves, I actually quite enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when Randy was in the
wife, the snake in the family, the viper in the family. Like it's so well liked that it has a name. Like people call it the viper in the family. Like that's how good of a story it was. That people, it literally was so good up until the end, and that's fine. And I'll go on record now because I don't think we got as much pushback because, everyone's mourning, but I enjoyed, I forgot what the name of it was, but I enjoyed the cinematic match he had with Orton. It was bad, but it was enjoyable.
House, right?
Yeah.
No, it was, and that's, I said it before either of you guys hopped on. Bray's mind felt at times like it was so much bigger than wrestling.
Yeah,
it felt so cinematic. It felt so. He was obviously one of the most creative minds we've had in professional wrestling, and it's mind-boggling to think of all the things that we could have gotten, and now unfortunately never will. And oh man, I
want to go to bat for two things. One is that match I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And two is for Brody Lee, is his street fight with Dean Ambrose from Extreme Rules, where they got in a car and then drove off, and then the match continued like hours later in the pay-per-view.
I forgot about that. That was great.
I loved that. It was so funny. It's stupid. but in a good way, in a silly wrestling way. Like, that's the kind of thing where if you're shitting on that now, you can't talk about how great the Attitude Era was, because that's some shit they would have done there.
Absolutely.
So, like, if you didn't love the compound matches and stuff like that, fine. But those things I'll go to bat for, even though they're dumb. And those are two of them right there.
My biggest regret about the Brody and Moxley match in WWE that you just mentioned is that they didn't allow it to go later into the night, that they could just say they had the record for the longest WWE match of all time. That would have been incredible. That's my one regret with that match. But I've already I already put it in the comments a while ago, but I want to address it again. We're here right now because we loved Bray Wyatt. We appreciated this incredible talent and all that he gave to us. And we're here because we want to celebrate that man. And if you guys who are watching right now have any Bray Wyatt memories, please feel free to share them. You know, we're all mourning right now. The three of us, we're nobody special. We're marks, you know, we just love this sport. We love this art form, and we want to be here with you guys. So if you're feeling anything, let us know.
Yeah, and there's just a good way to talk about things, you know, like it's sad, it's confusing, you know, like there's a huge degree of separation between us and Bray, but it's still someone we feel a strong connection to. So it's a little weird, it's a little different, and we're just kind of here talking about, we're mostly talking about good things, a few what ifs, a few regrets, a few, you know, not as good things, but mostly just talking about good things. If you gotta make a lighthearted joke to get by it, that's how I kind of like to deal with things. If you need to just bare your soul and pour your heart out, like, yeah, you can do that. There's no wrong way to grieve right now, or just to handle it. You don't have to grieve over someone you don't know. Like, that's also fine. But it's just there's just us dealing with it, talking about it, and just putting it out there. Like, they're, you know, because no one knows the right way to handle these situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I again, as you know, more time passes and we're all absorbing this unfortunate loss, I appreciate the fact that people who have never worked with Windham are celebrating this man. Impact just put out their respects and their condolences to the man. So many people, he has had such a huge impact on the industry, and even if you've never crossed paths with him, at this point, it's almost impossible not to say that his influence hasn't touched us or touched every corner of the industry. He was a what?
I said, and beyond. If I'm not mistaken, he worked on some horror movies as like a consultant sometimes. So, you know, this goes beyond wrestling.
Fiend mask. I'm a big horror guy. You know, I love horror movies. I love all horror. And his mask was created by one of the most legendary horror creators of all time, Tom Savini. He helped create Jason, and he helped create so many characters. And he created that Fiend mask. I couldn't go to a horror convention without seeing somebody cosplaying as the Fiend.
Wow, he had the guy who created Jason, like.
The look for Jason, yeah.
The guy who was like, what a genius. Let's put a hockey mask on the guy. What a fucking...
All right, deformed Jason. Deformed Jason.
I mean,
I knew who it was. But...
Let's not forget the lantern with, you know, cult leader Bray's head on it.
Oh, that was so cool.
This thing was fucking sick. I remember when he came out with that for the first... Because I remember the Fiend's, like, first true entrance. That was...
Finn Balor, yeah.
Yeah, that was insane.
Dude, like, or 2 out of 3 of us were at I don't know if you were there, Rev, too, the Raw after Mania 35 in Barclays. Dude, we were there for the first like vignette for the Fiend, where it's like, a lot of us in the crowd were just like, that has to be Bray. Like, no one else would have this. This was weird. Like, no one else would have this fucking box with a fucking vulture in it. Like, you know, like it's really cool that we got to watch that from start to finish. We got to be there for that first moment. But you're right, Rev. That first entrance against Finn Balor, that was so cool. He had everyone right then and there. Like, everyone was curious to see what he was going to do with this new character, but that put it on another level. And the Firefly Funhouse was just one of the best things ever in like Raw history. Like, it was always entertaining. It was so fun. It was so different. You know, I know it's like very influenced or similar to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff, but like it's just so different and out there, and it really took the fantasy element of wrestling and put it to its absolute limits to see how much it'll bend and how far it can go without breaking. And sometimes it broke, but that was like, you know, Hell in a Cell's fault or Goldberg's fault, you know, like, or poor
Vince's
decisions. Yeah, Vince's fault. Yeah. I don't want to give. Well, the Goldberg one was Goldberg. That wasn't a Vince thing. That was a Goldberg call. But like,
he wasn't even booked that day. He just showed up and speared him. It was really weird. Legal is on it still to this day. But I think it also speaks to, you were talking about it, those fantastical elements in wrestling. It's rare that those gimmicks get over. Undertaker, Kane, Bray, they're not the only supernatural or weird gimmicks that have come out in professional wrestling. They worked because of the people who made them work, you know? And Bray became so captivating as a person. Bray became so captivating as a character that when he came back on this most recent run, we were all just kind of excited that Bray Wyatt, the person, was speaking. You know, there was no cult leader gimmick. There was no Fiend. There's no Firefly Funhouse. We were just captivated by this person. And I think it speaks to how talented he was and to how invested in him we were, that no matter what he was doing, we wanted more.
And we were willing to take the journey with him because, you know, as he tried this last gimmick, I know a lot of people weren't as excited about it as it, you know, progressed. That Mountain Dew match wasn't the best, but
hey, he got LA Knight over. Okay, LA Knight would not
fair.
be who he was if he didn't look so good coming out of this feud with Bray Wyatt. So
yeah,
that's fair. But the match, I'm saying the match itself was okay. But just the fact that I think we were all willing to trust him and go on this journey with him just shows how good he was in everything else he did. And you can see that with, you know, as you were saying, Dan, in the Firefly Funhouse, where he voiced every character. You know, he was that creative, he was that talented. Yeah, he was able to just do all of these different things, and it was unbelievable to watch. It was unbelievable to watch. It was a privilege to watch. And James, to your point about like spooky characters, I'm trying to remember. I think it was in WCW when Hulk Hogan was like walking through that graveyard or whatever. Like, I forget who he was feuding with at the time, but that certainly didn't get over. So that's just an example of how hard it is to get one of, you know, a character like that over. So,
by the way, very well put, Tina. That was a very well put comment.
Thank you, Mom.
Want to say hi to Nas in the chat. What's going on, man?
What's up, Nas?
Yep. Rough day for all of us here.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it was raining, you know.
Yeah, I will say I would like, you know, I like to see SmackDown tomorrow and how it's handled. I'm sure, you know, they'll be doing a lot and there'll be a lot of tributes. I'm sure AEW will do something too. I know, you know, Rampage and Collision are pre-taped, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something.
They'll put like a little stinger, yeah.
There are 80,000 fans at Wembley. I better hear them chanting, "He's got the whole world in his hands." I want to hear.
Or at least thank you, Bray. Like,
yeah, I'm sure. Something. Yeah, that's why I think that they would probably do something at Wembley. But like I said, nobody made a comeback like Bray. Just the Easter eggs he planted as he, you know, returned. Whether it was the puppets for the Firefly Funhouse, just in the background of random stuff, or everything with the
QR code with the White Rabbit, the
White Rabbit stuff, and then playing whatever the Alice in Wonderland song is. I can't remember it off the top of my head. During commercials at Raw and SmackDown, like he was so creative, and that's why we were willing to follow him on all of these different journeys into all these different characters, because the anticipation for Bray Wyatt, as you know, he made, you know, his various returns, was just so palpable and so interesting that we were fully invested every time he came back.
Yeah, there was nothing that man could do that we wouldn't at least go along for the ride. He was so creative. He's earned so much goodwill with the fans that we always look back past how south things always went because we knew they weren't his fault. But like, man, it's just, I feel like I've become I think we're all going to become very redundant because there's only so many things you can say, and it's hard to keep track of your thoughts and what you have and haven't said in moments like this. But no matter what the guy did, he always had the interests of the fans. Everyone wanted to see. Remember when we thought he might go to AEW and how we're like, hanging on that sort of thing. And his, it just, maybe his most recent run wasn't his strongest because of, very real life circumstances. But now it just makes his return promo that from the SmackDown After Extreme Rules so
Absolutely
important.
Absolutely.
Because he was very emotional about that. Because I think even back then he knew that things might have been, like he went through some serious stuff. But I don't know. I just want to say ultimately that this is a huge tragedy. Bray is one of the all-time greats. I don't think people needed this tragedy to realize that and to acknowledge that. But I don't think there'll be any questions about it now because of this. And again, that's not really what's important here. For his family, that's a very small part of things. And we'll never be able to, what they're going through or really do anything about it to help them. Besides, again, just say that we loved Bray. Bray was a very special person. We all acknowledge how important of a person he was and that he touched so many lives, and that if not to be all somber and dark, but if I died tomorrow, people would be sad about it, and a good amount of people would be devastated. But we'll never have the outreach that someone like Bray has had, and that won't ever leave. That won't ever go away. Him being gone doesn't change that. Him being gone won't undo any of that. So no matter what, he'll be remembered by millions of people, and he'll be loved by similar amounts, and that's really cool. And again, for what little that's worth for his family, he was beloved, and no one will ever forget it or take it away from you guys. So whenever they're ready, they can see a sea of support to drown in and to cope with this tragedy.
Yeah, I think this is Papa G in the chat again.
Yep. Dad, those are the type of memories that we're going to carry as fans for a very, very long time. Those larger than life memories that he provided for us. And we're all very grateful for him.
I couldn't root against the guy. He was too charismatic. I was full blown in that cult at the beginning, and I never lost it.
I don't want to lie. I rooted against him several times, many times.
Because he was facing Cena.
And Bryan and Roman. It's not my fault.
I guess against Bryan, I was rooting against.
Yeah, Bryan was the only time. And he won that match. So
he won both of them. He shaved Bryan. He sheared him like a dog. But I would like for us. I think we should probably wrap up soon because
that was my go home speech.
We all beautifully done. We all need our own little time to process this loss and this tragedy. But I would like to leave with Windham's own words from last year. Absolutely well said, Naz. I would like to leave us with. I would like to leave on this note with Windham's own words from last year in a tweet. Wrestling is not a love story. It's a fairy tale for masochists, a comedy for people who criticize punchlines, a fantasy most can't understand, a spectacle no one can deny. Lines are blurred, heroes are villains, budgets are cut, business is business. But it can also be a land where dead men walk, where honor makes you elite, where demons run for office, and rock bottom is a reason to rejoice. Woo! It's an escape, a reason to point the blame at anyone but yourself for 2 to 3 hours. An excuse to be a kid again, and nothing matters except the moment we are in. Wrestling is not a love story. It's much more. It's hope. And in a world surrounded in hate, greed, and violence, a world where closure may never come, we all know a place that has hot and cold hope on tap, for better or for worse. Thank you, Windham. Thank you, Bray Wyatt. You will be missed. And we're all going to carry you with us for a very, very long time. Thank you.
What? Very well said. By Bray and by you.
Thank you for watching, everybody. We hope you can find some comfort in these trying times, and have a good night.